At 60, I was confident that I was still fine. I was still working, still driving, still eating the foods I liked. Buttered toast in the morning, a hamburger from the shop near my office for lunch, and a few beers in front of the TV at night. I felt a little tired, a bit bloated, sometimes slightly tight in the chest, but I thought that was just normal for my age. I didn't pay much attention. I didn't go for checkups. I wasn't worried. I thought I was healthier than most people my age. Until one Tuesday morning, as I was making coffee, I suddenly felt a sharp, crushing pain in the center of my chest. It wasn't like the usual fatigue. It felt like a violent punch from the inside. I tried to walk to the chair, but my legs gave out. Everything started to blur. I only remember falling to the floor, the sound of a glass shattering, then darkness swallowing everything. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. My wife's face was covered in tears, and my son was holding my hand tightly. The doctor looked at me solemnly and said, "You're lucky to be alive. But if you don't change, next time you might not get another chance." That moment, in the dim white light of the recovery room, I realized I had nearly died, and I needed to live again, in an entirely different way. In the days following the heart attack, I lived in constant confusion. Fear followed me like a silent shadow, afraid that it would come back, that I wouldn't get to say goodbye to my loved ones, that everything I had once thought was fine was actually an illusion. I lay in the hospital bed, staring at the stark white ceiling, listening to the steady beeping of the heart monitor, and asked myself, why me? How did I let myself get to this point? I blamed myself for being careless, for never going to the doctor, for living as if I had all the time in the world to make things right. But then something stronger than fear appeared. It was the love I saw in the eyes of the people closest to me. My wife sat by my side all night, holding my hand, not leaving for a second. My son, always busy, always quiet, now sat silently watching me, eyes red, gripping my hand as if afraid I would disappear. In that moment, I understood I couldn't just live for myself anymore. I was a husband, a father, someone they loved and needed. I hadn't just cheated death. I had been given a second chance to live meaningfully. And I decided, this time, I wouldn't waste it. After being discharged, I didn't return to my old life. Not because the doctor told me not to, but because I knew if I kept living like before, there wouldn't be another wake-up moment. But changing a lifestyle of 60 years wasn't easy. I didn't start with anything big. I started with walking. On my first morning home, I stepped outside, stood on the porch, and took a deep breath. The morning air was cool, but also felt strangely unfamiliar. I walked slowly around the yard, then down the block. Just 10, then 15 minutes of walking every morning, but to me, it felt like a ritual to remind myself I was still alive and learning how to live again. I taught myself to cook, no more frying, no more heaping spoonfuls of salt or sugar. I made my first steamed vegetables, bland, but my wife smiled and finished the whole plate. I gave up the habit of watching TV past midnight and replaced it with reading and turning off the lights at 10 p.m. I signed up for a meditation class for older adults, where I sat quietly among others who were also learning how to slow down and understand themselves better. I didn't try to go back to the man I was before the heart attack. I didn't want to be him anymore. I chose to build a new version of myself. Not perfect, not rushed, but honest, kind, and strong enough to go the distance. 6 months after the heart attack, I went back for a follow-up appointment. The doctor looked at my results, then looked up and smiled. Blood pressure's stable. Heart rate's good. You're on the right track. I nodded, grateful, but what I felt most didn't show up in the numbers. The real miracle didn't come from pills or supplements. It came from small but genuine changes I made every day, and from the way I began to fall in love with life again. I laughed more, not because everything was suddenly perfect, but because I learned to appreciate the small things. The sunlight through the window in the morning, the smell of toast from my wife's kitchen, the birdsong in the trees out front. I started calling old friends, people I had lost touch with over the years due to busyness and neglect. Those short, warm conversations made me feel connected again. Every morning, I woke up and looked over at the woman who had been by my side for over 30 years and whispered, "Thank you." Not because some miracle had saved me, but because I had been given the chance to live, to love, to make amends, and to truly enjoy life. I was no longer afraid of dying, because for the first time in years, I wasn't just living, I was truly alive, with everything real and beating inside me. If someone asked me, "Do you wish you had never gone through that heart attack?" I'd pause for a few seconds, then shake my head. No. As terrible as it was, the crushing pain, the helplessness on the kitchen floor, my wife's panicked eyes at the hospital, I wouldn't erase it from my memory. Because that moment, when I brushed up against death, was the moment that woke me up. Before that, I was living like a machine. The same loop: work, eat, sleep, repeat. I used to think turning 60 was the final chapter, where people retreat, wait for their children to grow up, and quietly fade into old age. But now I know 60 is not the end. It's a door to a deeper, more awakened chapter of life. I learned to listen to my body, not just through medicine, but with attention and gratitude. I began having conversations with my mind, no longer rushing, no longer avoiding. I became kinder to myself, no longer scolding past mistakes, but learning to forgive and move forward. The heart attack seemed like it had taken my vitality, but in truth, it gave me back the meaning of life. I didn't just survive, I was reborn, in a way I never would have touched if that shock hadn't come. If you think you're doing fine, still running on autopilot, still eating the same way, still putting your health last, pause for a moment. Listen to me, someone who once collapsed on the kitchen floor because of an uninvited heart attack. Sometimes what wakes us up isn't gentle advice, but a serious wake-up call. But you don't have to wait until it's too late to begin changing. Treat your body as if it's the only home you've got. Listen to the little signs: restless sleep, uneven heartbeat, short breath, climbing stairs. Love yourself, not just to live longer, but to live more deeply, to be truly present for the ones you love. You're never too old to start over. 60 isn't the end. It can be the most beautiful chapter in your life's journey if you choose to start truly living today.